The Sjogren's Syndrome Foundation was founded in 1983 by Elaine Harris, a Sjogren's patient who was frustrated by the lack of information available to her and her physicians. Since then, we've come a long way. Diagnosis for Sjogren's has increased, and the SSF continues to be the lead organization worldwide for Sjogren's patients. The challenge of getting a proper diagnosis and finding healthcare professionals who understand the disease, however, still exists. Thanks to Elaine Harris's foresight, the SSF helps thousands of newly diagnosed patients each year and educates healthcare professionals about how to manage, treat, and monitor their Sjogren's patients. At the Sjogren's Syndrome Foundation, we're committed to helping patients cope with their disease. From supporting advancements of new therapies to the development of new novel diagnostics, the Foundation continues to lead the fight to ensure Sjogren's patients are not forgotten. An early diagnosis is critical so that patients can be monitored for the serious complications of the disease. Unfortunately, receiving a proper diagnosis is often a challenge and can take an average of 4.7 years. That is why the SSF launched a bold 5-year breakthrough goal to shorten the time to diagnose Sjogren's by 50% within 5 years. The Sjogren's Syndrome Foundation is the leading advocate for Sjogren's patients. We have a dynamic medical and scientific advisory board comprised of key thought leaders, clinicians, and researchers who work in Sjogren's and are recognized worldwide. Together with these volunteers and healthcare professionals, the SSF has been able to implement programs such as the first ever clinical practice guidelines for Sjogren's. These guidelines give Sjogren's physicians a roadmap for how to treat, monitor, and manage Sjogren's in their patients. This is just one example of how the SSF is achieving our mission and changing the lives of Sjogren's patients. The Sjogren's Syndrome Foundation stands on our founding principle of putting the patient first. From our 65 patient-run support groups to our 200 phone volunteers, we serve our patients with the ability to connect with others that have Sjogren's. Our programs of education always involve patient volunteers to help review our educational materials, conference topics, and Sjogren's content. Our research grants are awarded based on innovation and what will help change the field of Sjogren's the fastest so as to make the greatest gain for Sjogren's patients. I believe that the foundation is effective because the patient voice is never forgotten. The Sjogren's Syndrome Foundation measures our impact and success by many variables. For example, the SSF manages over 65 support groups, prints 14 newsletters, and distributes tens of thousands of educational brochures each year. Our physician-focused newsletter, the Sjogren's Quarterly, is a sought-after publication at medical and scientific meetings throughout the world. Most importantly, the SSF is always using metrics to gauge the success of every campaign, every program, and every project. We set goals, we set objectives, and then we evaluate them against a simple question: how did this impact the lives of Sjogren's patients? By operating on a national level, people are often surprised at how little staff we have for the far-reaching programs and initiatives we organize. Representing the estimated 4 million Americans suffering from Sjogren's is quite an undertaking, but we could not do it without the help of thousands of volunteers, as well as our volunteer board of directors. We're excited about the future of Sjogren's, and we believe we're on pace for great discoveries. But in order to make Sjogren's a household name, we need everyone's support to help spread awareness, raise funds, and volunteer. The Sjogren's Syndrome Foundation is proud to be the only national nonprofit organization dedicated to conquering Sjogren's. In addition to providing patients with practical information and coping strategies, the foundation is the clearinghouse for medical information and recognized as a national advocate. The SSF has launched a clinical trials consortium to encourage the development of new therapeutics for Sjogren's and is working on clinical practice guidelines for Sjogren's to help standardize patient care. The SSF is the premier organization in Sjogren's research funding by providing more than $1.5 million in research grants in the past 5 years. With Sjogren's, a correct diagnosis can often be difficult to obtain and has been found to take an average of 4.7 years. Because symptoms can mimic other conditions and diseases, Sjogren's is often overlooked or misdiagnosed. A patient will discuss dry eye with their optometrist, vaginal dryness with their gynecologist, or joint pain with their primary care doctor. Each symptom alone wouldn't suggest an autoimmune disease, but when coupled together would lead a physician to suspect Sjogren's. This is why increasing awareness among the general public is important so that when visiting a primary care physician, patients remember to share all of their symptoms to receive a proper diagnosis. Additional support for the Sjogren's Syndrome Foundation would help us expand our education and awareness programs. This support would enable us to attend more professional conferences to educate healthcare professionals. Additional resources would also allow the SSF to distribute materials to more specialists, which would ultimately assist us in reaching patients who may be suffering from a particular symptom but didn't realize that the cause could be a systemic disease such as Sjogren's. And finally, more funding is needed so that the SSF can produce a national awareness campaign and reach the 3 million patients that are not yet diagnosed. As CEO, I'm proud we are the premier organization in Sjogren's research funding. However, more funding is needed. As more talented researchers take an interest in Sjogren's, the SSF struggles to find additional funding to support these groundbreaking projects. Without increased support for research, we cannot fund these projects, and thus they must be turned away. Our hope is one day all Sjogren's research will be adequately funded so that patients can have the answers for their debilitating disease. Being a Sjogren's patient is challenging, but not having a therapy to treat your disease nor understanding what is causing it is heartbreaking.